Doug here with this week's blog update. The passage we're looking at for this first week in February is Joshua 6:18 through 7:5, and essentially what that is in the story is it's the very end of the Jericho experience, I guess, as it were, and then the first defeat at the town of Ai. And here's how I want to frame reading this section for this week, and it's with a question. What if we thought of Israel and the Israelites at this as a kind of group, as a nation? Not really, they're not a nation yet, but as a group. What if we thought of the Israelites as a teenager? If you've read up to this part in Joshua, you know that Israel has vacillated back and forth between being responsible and irresponsible, between being obedient and disobedient. And I think the best way to think about them in this particular point in the story is to think of them as maybe a 16-year-old teenager who's getting his or her license for the first time and is for the first time having some measure of responsibility and is able to either be responsible with that responsibility or to be irresponsible with that responsibility. And we get to see that in Israel right now. If you think about it, what happens, Israel has been in a period of irresponsibility through the wilderness. They were disobedient and they had their privileges taken away. When they come out of the wilderness, at the very beginning of Joshua, God gives them a new leader. He has a covenant renewal process with them where the sons of Israel are circumcised. And this is essentially the parent reestablishing the rules of the home. This is how it's going to be under my roof. They cross the Jordan. God reasserts his authority as the parental figure here. And then on the other side, they celebrate the Passover, and Israel kind of says, hey, listen, we're going to follow you, and we're going to be obedient to you. The first major test of this new responsibility comes in the form when God takes away manna and allows Israel to eat of the food of the Promised Land, or the fruits of the Promised Land, for the first time. And so Israel is given, literally given this responsibility in the land. The second test comes with the Jericho experience, where we're reading right here in chapter 6. And towards the end of that, Israel proves responsible. They follow God's rules to the nth degree. They walk around the city one time for 6 days. They walk around it 7 times on the 7th day. The walls fall. They take Jericho. And they're shown to be a very obedient, responsible child of God, or children of God. What's interesting, though, is at the beginning of chapter 7, Israel moves on to the town of Ai. And as we sometimes see with teenagers, responsibility doesn't necessarily last indefinitely. Where there is a period of responsibility with Jericho, when it comes to Ai, Israel is not responsible. And in the second half of chapter 7, you get to see the outcome of that irresponsibility, or the consequences, as it were. But that should frame the story up to this point. I challenge you to go back and read through it and see if you can see some parallels there. By no means am I saying this should be the broad interpretive scheme here, but it's an interesting way to think about it and read through this. I think you could probably look through the Old Testament and think of Israel, beginning with Adam, as a teenager. And again, they vacillate back and forth between responsibility and irresponsibility. That's all for this week. I hope you enjoy the text, and we'll see you next week.